The programme. We're going to start by taking you straight to these live shots of this is New York. You can see that, Antonio Guterres. This is an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council. It's been called, due to start at the top of this hour, so right now, and you can see everyone gathering there. They're talking, of course, about these Iranian strikes, and as we wait for everyone to take their seat and those initial addresses to get underway, we'll keep on those pictures, but I'm going to bring in my colleague Katrina Perry, who's live for us outside the White House in the US. So Katrina, we're going to keep on these pictures there, but it looks like we've still got a couple of minutes before everyone's in their seats. Just talk us through, before we listen in there, to what is the very latest there from the White House.
Well, the very latest from the White House here is that we are still waiting to see if President Trump himself will appear on camera today. He's been doing a few phone calls with the various members of the US media here, talking to them through the day, talking to Axios, saying he had got a sense from these nuclear talks that Iran was getting close and kept pulling back, and he felt they didn't really want a deal. That's why he ultimately decided to launch these strikes. We've been hearing from some senior administration officials here who've been briefing ourselves in the media throughout the day, again making that point that they felt that diplomacy was not a tangible and realistic option when it came to Iran, that they didn't feel there was a deal there to be done, and crucially that they felt there was an imminent attack likely for the United States. There was an imminent threat to national security here. Now, they haven't given details about the nature of that imminent threat, who exactly it was from, what exactly it was made up of, whether that was troops in the region, whether that was some targets here in the United States. We just simply don't have that level of information, and there's a lot of pressure on President Trump and on the administration domestically here in the US and internationally to give a bit more extra detail on just what was the rationale here for what is essentially a preemptive strike. And if you look at international law, which is what they're going to be discussing at the Security Council emergency meeting there, one nation cannot attack the sovereignty of another nation like this unless they're acting within self-defence. And the question being asked is, where was the act they were defending themselves from? And that's what the US is going to have to explain to the international community, but also to their own lawmakers here. President Trump using the word overnight war with Iran in that video message that he posted online. The lawmakers here from both parties want to know, well, if it's war, you should have had a war declaration from Congress. There's general bipartisan support for the need to minimise any threat to the US, to attack Iran's nuclear capabilities. Generally, there is support for that, and we saw it, of course, last June, didn't we, with Operation Midnight Hammer, with that very limited strike that the US carried out on Iran. There was a bipartisan broad support for that. This is a bit different. We're talking about, as the President himself said, massive military operation, massive combat operations, likely to last for many days, he said. He also has teased himself with some of those calls to US media here that, in fact, perhaps it might last a little bit longer. He said to Axios, "I have several off-ramps. I could go long and take over the whole thing," presumably meaning the entire nation of Iran, or end it in 2 or 3 days. So he's still looking at a number of options. The administration officials, as I say, speaking to the media today, they're due to have very classified briefings with members of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party tomorrow. Now, at that emergency meeting in New York of the Security Council, we will hear from the United States, more than likely from the US ambassador to the United Nations, Mike Waltz, of course, former national security advisor, very close to President Trump. And so that will be the first time that we'll sort of have one of the administration officials outlining in a formal way their reasoning for what they did overnight, taking that decision. President Trump in Mar-a-Lago with the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and J.D. Vance here. So let's have a listen in to what's being said there at that Security Council meeting.
The provisional agenda for the meeting is the situation in the Middle East. The agenda is adopted. In accordance with Rule 37 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the representatives of the Islamic Republic of Iran and Israel to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. In accordance with Rule 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I also invite His Excellency, Mr. Majed A. Abdulaziz, Permanent Observer of the League of Arab States to the United Nations, to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. The Security Council will now begin its consideration of item 2 of the agenda. I warmly welcome the Secretary General, His Excellency, Mr. Antonio Guterres, and I give him the floor.
Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I will speak directly to 3 areas today: the principles, the facts, and the way out. First, the principles. The UN Charter provides the foundation for the maintenance of international peace and security. Article 2 of the Charter clearly states, all members shall refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. International law and international humanitarian law must always be respected. That is why, since this morning, I have condemned the massive military strikes by the United States and Israel against Iran. And I also condemned the subsequent attacks by Iran, violating the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Bahrain, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. We are witnessing a grave threat to international peace and security. Military action carries the risk of igniting a chain of events that no one can control in the most volatile region of the world. Let me be clear, there is no viable alternative to the peaceful settlement of international disputes. Lasting peace can only be achieved through peaceful means, including genuine dialogue and negotiations. Mr. President, second, the facts. The situation on the ground is very fluid. There are many unconfirmed reports. Here is what we know. About 20 cities across Iran, including Tehran, Isfahan, Qom, Shahryar, and Tabriz, have reportedly been attacked. In Tehran, large explosions were reported in the district that includes the presidential palace and the compound of the supreme leader. Several high-ranking officials have reportedly been killed, including, according to Israeli sources, Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei, that I'm not in a position to confirm. Iran's airspace has been closed and the country is under a near-total internet blackout. The attacks have reportedly caused significant civilian casualties. According to Iranian media, an airstrike killed at least 85 people and injured many more at a girls' school in Minab, Hormozgan province, and the school in Tehran was also reportedly hit, causing 2 deaths.